The bottom line is they have somebody that they think did it.
What's going to happen to this guy?
Well, I hope he's going to be found guilty, I would imagine. And I hope he gets the death penalty. What he did, Charlie Kirk was the finest person.
Hope he gets the death penalty. Listen to that again.
Death penalty for Tyler Robinson.
There's something in American history and global history called mob rules. Now, you might think mob rules means something in particular, like the mob rules direction is where we end up. However, in this video, since Baron Coleman dropped the information on Casey Anthony yesterday and kind of drew similarities, I'm going to show you multiple, including Casey Anthony, OJ Simpson, Michael Jackson, what mob rules actually buys you. And it's not what you think. You want to watch this all the way through to the end because you'll be very, very surprised to what happens and the research that I've done based off of mob rules. So please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Let's get right into the video.
You're not even ready for what's coming next.
But what I'm about to walk you through is going to make you a little bit uncomfortable, okay? I think it will. I think it's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. It's going to make you probably a little bit angry, I think I would say. And it's going to make you think. It's going to make you think a lot because today I'm going to walk through Tyler Robinson, Charlie Kirk, Erika Kirk, Turning Point USA, and the 70-year-old pattern in American criminal justice system, that almost nobody on this platform or in general has really connected to what's happening in Provo, Utah right now. There's a 70-year timeline of historical events, and we're going to pull up court videos and we're going to discuss from OJ Simpson to Michael Jackson to Casey Anthony to look and talk about the 181-page motion line by line, if I can, or at least I'll overbrief it. And we're going to talk about the secret Utah Supreme Court appeal that a lot of people know it existed, but it needs to be dove into a little bit more.
Tyler Robinson did this. It seems very clear to me. My only hope is that I can be there in the room when they flip the switch and take his life. I want him dead. I want the death penalty handed down against him and anyone who helped him. And I will be gleeful on the day it is carried out. I honestly don't know how that squares with my Catholic faith, to be honest. We're not real pro the state killing people or humans taking other humans' lives, whether it's in the womb or in the course of a crime. But we are pro-justice. And the Bible does say an eye for an eye.
Oh, is that right? Pro-justice. All right. The Bible says eye for an eye. Is that right? Okay.
And there is no deterrence. I'm sorry. The deterrence, I do believe, requires the death penalty in the most heinous of cases. And I do believe it should be reserved for the most heinous of cases. And this is that.
I'll just leave it there. Okay. Like I said, Megyn Kelly, president, vice president, AG, Pam, whoever, you name it, Fox News, Jonathan Turley, retired FBI agents, all the whole fake MAGA. I call them fake MAGA or new MAGA. Okay. Salem Media MAGA. How about that? Boston MAGA. So a body language expert, even like trying to skew information. And then there's the second mob, the quieter but real independent media. Like we're quieter because they have these massive news stations and they're just blasting out. We're on the internet and we're louder in that way in text and in video. And but nobody's out here actually saying he's guilty or he's super innocent, right? We're all just trying to figure out what happened. But like me, people like you screaming from the other direction. Maybe he's innocent. Charlie had something happen that we're not seeing and nothing is right. Over this video, I will show you what happens. I'm going to show you the psychological mechanism that produced not guilty verdicts in OJ Simpson's trial, Michael Jackson, Casey Anthony, and Kyle Rittenhouse. There was another half a dozen that I could have shown, but I want to keep it concise. October 3rd, 1995, there was 150 million Americans that ended up basically coming to their own conclusion, right? But they stopped what they were doing. White America, by a 2-to-1 margin, actually, had already decided that OJ Simpson is guilty. Okay, forensic evidence, DNA, blood, the glove, Marcia Clark called it airtight, Pull up OJ verdict link. Watch it. There's 3 hours and 50 minutes. Not guilty. Several jurors said afterward that they personally believe that OJ probably did it. Several jurors. They voted not guilty anyways because the prosecution did not meet the standard. And that's important because the LAPD had been caught lying because reasonable doubt does not require that you believe someone is innocent. Only that the state failed to prove it. Barron touched on that yesterday, and I'm glad he did. They don't have to say anything. The defendants, they don't have to say anything. They can keep there with their mouths shut, okay?
Superior Court of the State of California, County of Los Angeles, in the matter of the people of the State of California versus Orenthal James Simpson. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony, upon Ronald Lyle Goldman, a human being, as charged in count 2 of the information. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, further find the special circumstance that the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson.
So this is the opposing party, devastated.
Has in this case been convicted of at least one crime of murder of the first degree and one or more crimes of murder of the first or second degree to be not true. Signed this.
We're talking 2 people, 2 murders. Well, actually, specifically his wife. This is, and then Ronald Goldman, and like all of this stuff, right, is very interesting to see. We have another clip. We have Michael Jackson. But before I'll finish with OJ, is that they voted not guilty, even though they felt that he was guilty, right? They literally, I mean, this is what happened, right? How can we explain that? It's because reasonable doubt, it does not require you, I'll say it again, it does not require you that you have to believe someone is innocent. You have to actually believe that he is the person, the alleged, is guilty. And that's very important distinction. And the state failed to prove it. I mean, the people on the jury, they're people like me and you. Any one of us could be picked for that. Okay, now we go to June 13th. Michael Jackson, there's 140 witnesses. You have 700 pieces of evidence. And the judge actually banned cameras from the courtroom because the media circus was so prejudicial. Pull up the verdict. We're going to pull it up here and go look at the story and see, I'll show you right in front of us. I mean, not guilty 14 times. One juror after the verdict said that there wasn't a shred of evidence that was able to show us or give us any doubt. 48% of Americans disagreed with the verdict, 48. And the jury did not care. They saw the actual evidence and the public saw news packages.
Reading the verdicts, it's coming in now.
Superior Court of the State of California for the County of Santa Barbara, Santa Maria Division. The people of the State of California, plaintiff versus Michael Joe Jackson, defendant. Case number 1133603. Count 1, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of conspiracy as charged in count 1 of the indictment. Dated June 13th, 2005. Foreperson number 80. Count 2, verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of a lewd act upon a minor child as charged in count 2 of the indictment, dated June 13th, 2005, foreperson number 80. Count 3, verdict. We, the jury, in the above
We're not going to go through all 14 of these, right? But a self-produced video in 2005 encapsulating the media. So it's an audio recording over, I mean, look, there is a lot of people. There's documentaries came out speaking against Michael Jackson. Documentaries. These people, but he was found innocent. How about another one for you? Casey Anthony. Remember Casey Anthony? People are still worked up about Casey Anthony. We still see people making content about Casey Anthony. This was July 5th, 2011. Casey Anthony, the first social media trial in American history. 2/3 of the America's population said that she was guilty. The prosecution sought the death penalty. The reaction shots are just wild. If you see, like, even today, people are still making content. We are today. Not guilty. First jury vote, 10-2 for acquittal. After 11 hours, a unanimous decision came out. The lead prosecutor later publicly stated that pretrial publicity. This is what the lead prosecutor that was trying to convict Casey Anthony said, that pretrial publicity contributed to the acquittal. How wild is that?
Let the record reflect that the defendant is present along with counsel for the defendant. Both sides ready to proceed. It's been brought to my attention that the jury has reached the verdict. State?
The state's ready to proceed, Your Honor.
Defense?
Defense is ready.
To those in the gallery, please do not express any signs of approval or disapproval upon the reading of the verdict. Let's return to jury. State recognized presence of the jury.
We do, Your Honor.
And does the defense?
Yes, sir, we do.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Have you reached the verdict? Would you hand the verdict form to the court, deputy, please? Will the defendant rise along with counsel? Madam Clerk, you may publish the verdicts.
In the Circuit Court for the Ninth Judicial Circuit in and for Orange County, Florida, State of Florida versus Casey Marie Anthony. As to case number 2008 CF 15606-0. As to the charge of first-degree murder, verdict as to count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty, so say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, on this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of aggravated child abuse, verdict as to count 2. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty, so say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of aggravated manslaughter of a child, verdict as to count 3. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty, so say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict as to count 4. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. So say we all, dated Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict as to count 5. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. So say we all, dated Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict as to count 6. We, the jury, find the defendant We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. So say we all, dated Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict as to count 7. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. So say we all, dated Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson.
Madam Clerk, you may poll the jury.
Juror number 1, were these your true and correct verdicts? Pardon? Juror number 1, were these your true and correct verdicts? No. Were they all your true and correct verdicts? Yes. Juror number 2, were these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 3, were these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 4, were these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 5, were these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 6, were these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 7, were these your true and correct verdicts? Juror number 8, were these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 9, were these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
Juror number 10, were these your true and
I
correct
mean, they're pretty
Juror number
diligent.
11, were these your true and correct verdicts?
Yes.
And juror number 12, were these your true and correct verdicts? Yeah.
Will counsel and the defendant approach the podium? Not all the counsel, but just Representative Sam. Casey Marie Anthony, a jury of your peers, having found you not guilty as to the charge contained in count 1 of the indictment, murder in the first degree. At this time, I will adjudge you to be not guilty.
So there you have it, right? I'll give you a little bit of background on Casey Anthony. Her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee, goes missing. Casey doesn't report her missing for 31 days. Okay. 31 days. Doesn't report. She tells her mom and nanny took the little girl. Okay. She tells her mom that a nanny took her daughter. There was no nanny. The grandmother is the one who eventually calls 911. By the time Kaylee's remains were found 6 months later, that was in a wooded area near the family home. You're talking egregious crimes. Casey was already in jail. The entire country has already decided. Nancy Grace is on TV every single night, just for years, calling her just a murderer and you name it. The hashtag, I think it was justice for Kaylee, was everywhere. I remember 15 years ago. I was in my, I don't want to show my age. I was in my early 20s. 2/3, Time Magazine called it the social media trial of the century. 2/3 of Americans polled, and they said that they believed Casey killed her own daughter. And imagine how egregious that is, but she was proven innocent. The prosecutor stood up and said he was seeking the death penalty for a 25-year-old mother, and nobody flinched a beat. Everybody already knew. They moved the jury selection 100 miles from Pinellas County because Orlando was so poisoned by the coverage. Not that it really mattered. It was everywhere, all over the news, at least countrywide. They sequestered them 6 weeks of trial. Forensic experts, the smell of decomposition in her trunk. The Bella Vita tattoo Casey while her daughter was missing. The whole country was certainly watching. And CNN, they cut it live. This court TV shows it here as well. Now, here's the part that almost nobody actually remembers is that the jury was not blind. They convicted Casey Anthony on 4 separate counts of lying to law enforcement, as you heard. 4 counts. The lie about the nanny named Zanny. They lie about where she worked. The lie about the phone call to with Kaylee. The lie about telling coworkers her daughter was missing. The jury looked at the evidence, found beyond a reasonable doubt that Casey lied to police officers during their investigation about her missing child. Why would you do that? And convicted her on those 4, sentenced her to a year on each count and ran them consecutively, which is year by year. So they did not let her off the hook completely, but they held her accountable for exactly what the prosecution actually proved, which was that she lied. They did not hold her accountable for what the prosecution could not prove. And this goes importantly into the case of Tyler Robinson, because this is like they're literally trying to get to go to the next part without DNA evidence. The gall of these people. So if you cannot prove what the crime scene, the crime even was, you cannot determine what the punishment should actually be. And the prosecution never established the cause of death. That's what led to, there's no direct physical evidence linked to Casey and the killing. They built this entire murder case on her character, her lies, her behavior. The jury said that the lies are crimes. The killing was not proven, though. The first vote in that jury room on the murder charge was 10-2 for an acquittal. After 11 hours, unanimous. Years later, the lead prosecutor came out. His name was Jeff Ashton. Came out publicly and said that the pretrial publicity is what contributed to the not guilty verdict on the murder charges. And the mob screaming guilty for 3 years straight is what produced this outcome that the mob did not want. Casey Anthony walked out of that courtroom and could not go back to Florida. The country never forgave her. The jurors stayed anonymous for months because the mob wanted to punish them for the verdict that the mob did not order. Remember the pattern, because we're going to talk about a Utah courtroom today and watch it happening again. Then you have Kyle Rittenhouse. This is in November of 2021. Let me know in the comments, in the chat. Are you liking this? Are you liking this content? The way I'm doing this, something a little bit different. I haven't done this style, but I think it's very important. Let me know in the chat. Are you enjoying this type of this live stream so far? So again, November 19th, 2021, Kyle Rittenhouse, the president of the United States, called him a white supremacist before a jury was even seated. So what does that remind you of? President Trump. Interesting, no? Is this something that is normal? Or our presidents just, thank you for letting me know in the chat. Great show. Good. Thank you. Good. I was wondering, like, is this going to be too boring for you guys? I don't know if I think it's super interesting. Thank you. Thank you for the love. Absolutely. Okay, let's keep it moving. Again, the president himself called him a white supremacist before a jury was ever seated. Cable news ran Kyle Rittenhouse's mugshot in a loop. They had, the verdict link, I'm going to show you. You know, you're going to watch him collapse forward at the defense table. Not guilty on all 5 accounts. There was a legal analyst, Jonathan Turley, wrote at that time that prosecutors overcharged to satisfy the public mob. And that overcharging may please the public, but it can actually demolish a case. As you can see, that is the same Turley who you will hear in this stream calling Tyler Robinson a monster on Fox News before the trial. I'll try to pull it up. But yeah, here, let's go ahead and play this. Type pattern in the chat if you are seeing a pattern. Oh, wait. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Let's go right here.
54. And has the jury reached a verdict as to each count of the information?
Yes, we have, Your Honor.
And one verdict and one verdict only?
Yes.
Would you hand all the paperwork to the bailiff, please?
This is the ones that we didn't know.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, thanks. May I see that too, please, Mrs. Chairman? Thank you.
And you got to imagine, like, when you're there, imagine look at his face, man. He's terrified. Look at his face. And rightfully so, deservingly so, but maybe not deservingly so. I don't know. They said not. But in that position, to even get in that position, you know what makes me wonder is, like, what happens to, if they're innocent, what about the person who actually did it so that the people just get away? Like, I don't know enough about the cases to say, well, you know, this person, so I don't know, maybe you can tell me in the chat. But imagine the pressure. He is staring glaring, like, oh God, I'm going to get the death penalty. And it's scary. And it can happen to any one of us. I say this all the time, that this can happen to any one of us right here. Look at what Tyler Robinson is going through. If indeed you think he's innocent, that means that it could happen to any one of us. And now you might not put yourself in precarious situations dealing with certain people. So hopefully not. But we don't know the full truth. But it doesn't look like Tyler Robinson should be sitting in this situation. Not to me, at least.
The defendant will rise, face the jury, and hearken to its verdicts.
State of Wisconsin versus Kyle Rittenhouse. As to the first count of the information, Joseph Rosenbaum. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the second count of the information, Richard McGinnis. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the third count of the information, unknown male. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the fourth.
Someone said it. Reality, good to see you, girl. Yeah, right? Look at, he's about to bust right here.
Count of the information, Anthony Huber. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information,
Poor kid, bro. I don't know. Self-defense, I think, is what this was. And I'll tell you a little bit about it. If you don't know, I'll share that.
H. Grosskreutz. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse.
Look in the background. She's crying. Anybody else? He is just
not guilty.
Members of the jury, are these your unanimous verdicts? Is there anyone who does not agree with the verdicts as read? Would you wish the jury polled? No. Okay. Okay, folks, your job is done. And we started just about 3 weeks ago. And I told you it could last 2 weeks and 2 days. This is 2 weeks. This is 3 weeks. You were a wonderful jury to work with. You were punctual. You were attentive. And the forgotten six over here who had a very difficult job of keeping from discussing the case during the time that they were sequestered as well. All of you, I couldn't have asked for a better jury to work with. And it has truly.
This is what I hope. At Judge Graff and Tyler Robinson's case, it's looking like hopefully he does have this, this backbone of really not falling to I just hope that it is fair. That's all. I really hope that it's fair and that it remains fair. It looks like he's swaying that way. God hoping that I'm praying that it is fair. But as for Kyle Rittenhouse, to refresh memories or to let you know what happened, this one is fresh enough that a lot of you probably remember it, especially if you follow politics. I personally wasn't following it at the time, but I did know about it, right? And I'll walk you through what happened, because in that courtroom, this is one of the cleanest examples of the pattern we are talking about tonight. August 25th of 2020, in Kenosha, Wisconsin, the Jacob Blake shooting has set really the city on fire. Literally fire. Buildings were burning, riots were in the streets, and a 17-year-old kid named Kyle Rittenhouse drives up from across the Illinois border with a friend. He has an AR-15, and he says he is there to help protect a car dealership and provide medical aid. And by the end of the night, 3 men are shot, 2 of them are dead, and the third one survives with his bicep blown off. The video starts circulating the same night, cell phone clips, bystander footage, and Kyle walking down the street with the rifle, hands up, trying to surrender to police. The cops drive right past him. You remember that? I wonder if I can pull up the footage of that, because that was interesting. I remember that exactly. Let's see if they left it on. Let me take a quick glance. Yeah, I get worried about showing stuff on here. It's on YouTube, so.
I am at that business, sir.
Back away from my people, man.
A 17-year-old from Illinois has been charged with intentional homicide after allegedly shooting 3 people at a protest in Kenosha, Wisconsin, killing 2 of them.
What happened yesterday night in Kenosha was despicable. 2 people were shot and killed, and a third person was shot and seriously injured.
Authorities say Kyle Rittenhouse was one of a number of self-proclaimed militia members who traveled to Kenosha, where people have been protesting the shooting of Jacob Blake, a black man who was shot by a white police officer. Some so-called militia members had asked the Kenosha County Sheriff's Department to deputize them so they could help protect property, a request the sheriff and mayor denied, fearing violence.
So, yeah, I mean, this was pretty wild, right? But again, The cops drive past him, and by morning, the entire country had decided white supremacist, vigilante, domestic terrorist, school shooter starter pack. Joe Biden, who was running for president at the time, posted a campaign video that included Kyle's face on a montage of white supremacists, the sitting president before a trial. What does that remind you of? Doesn't that piss you off? Before charges had even been formally contested, cable news ran this photo of Kyle with the rifle in a loop for over a year, 14 months straight. What are we seeing? The same thing today. Prosecutors, well, basically, the narrative that was set is that there was a racist kid who crossed state lines with an illegal firearm to murder Black Lives Matter protesters. Every single piece of that sentence turned out to be wrong. Every one. The gun was not transported across the state lines. 3 men he shot were all white. He was not a member of any white supremacist organization that they found, and none of it matched the public story at all. But the public story is what stuck. And prosecutors began to respond the way prosecutors always respond to mob pressure. They overcharged first-degree intentional homicide, reckless homicide, attempted intentional homicide, reckless endangering safety, possession of a dangerous weapon by a minor, 5 counts. The lead charges carries life in prison. And as you can see, what happened? He collapsed forward. The country lost its mind. The same legal analyst, Jonathan Turley, who will sit on Fox News 3 years later and call Tyler Robinson a monster, that same Jonathan Turley wrote a column the week of the Rittenhouse verdict explaining what happened. Let's see if I can find the Jonathan Turley. If I can find evidence against, right here. This is Daily BS. If this doesn't, right here. Let's share this. So Jonathan Turley says evidence against Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin is strongest he's ever seen. Is this guy an operator or something? What is he doing? George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley said on Thursday that the evidence against Tyler Robinson, the alleged assassin of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk, is the strongest he had ever seen in a case. You mean to tell me stronger than someone in the middle of the street with an AR actually who killed people? That you're telling me stronger than that? Is that right? Okay. And then let's go here. Jonathan Turley, Kyle Rittenhouse. Slay News. Let's see what this is all about. Did this pull up? What happened? What's going on? Why is this thing not doing it? Hold on. This is so interesting, you guys. I find this very intriguing. Jonathan Turley. So this is on Kyle Rittenhouse, November 15th, 2021. Jonathan Turley on Kyle Rittenhouse case. If that clause doesn't fit, you must acquit. What? The guy is like, I'm not saying, obviously the self-defense was shown to be the case. But what kind of guy, why would you do this regarding Tyler Robinson? What is it about the case that is so without a shadow of a doubt? Or are you just pulling punches to try to calling shots to try to get favoritism in the government?
Okay, I probably shouldn't say this here, but see how perfect this looks? It's not by accident. These big grocery chains don't want you seeing this.
Jonathan Turley, Fox News contributor, George Washington University law professor. And now, Jonathan, the judge allowed the cameras in the court just for today, for this preliminary, conversation, deliberation on this, move the public out as they were talking about the concerns of both parties. But I have a question. Given the fact that this is fairly well-established judicial, discretion and standards of discretion, why on earth is this taking until February to decide this one issue?
Well, this is a very deliberative judge, and I've been impressed with him overall. He's, I think, handling the case well. It is not moving at a clip that one would hope for. It's definitely going a bit slower. But I think that reflects the fact that this judge wants to be very cautious. The fact is, this is a case with overwhelming evidence. I mean, the prosecutors could probably lose 90% of this evidence in a suppression hearing and still secure an easy conviction. He has a presumption of innocence, but the evidence here you can't ignore. It's just the strongest I've ever seen in a case. So the real concern for the court is not just he has to protect the rights of the defendant, which is the primary concern on these questions, but also he doesn't want to commit reversible error because that tends to victimize the family again because they have to go through this again. So he's being very, very cautious.
So this guy seems to have his hands in a lot of pots. I find it interesting, to say the least. I find it interesting. So Rittenhouse's jury did not acquit because they loved Kyle. They acquitted because the prosecution failed to meet the demand of the burden that the law requires, because the jury saw what the public had not been allowed to see. And remember that, because Tyler Robinson has also been overcharged. The death penalty was filed before the evidence was tested. The same machine that ran Rittenhouse into the ground is running Robinson into the ground right now. And history says that the jury is going to do exactly what they did in Kenosha. Because guess what? Our voices, the reason why they're like, no cameras in the court, it's making him look bad and this and this and that. It's not because of us saying he's innocent. It's because of the overwhelming paid PSYOP operational media are convicting him, and every chance they get, they're using that against him.
The bottom line is they have somebody that they think did it.
What's going to happen to this guy?
Well, I hope he's going to be found guilty, I would imagine, and I hope he gets the death penalty. What he did, Charlie Kirk was the finest person.
Hope he gets the death penalty. Listen to that again.
The bottom line is they have somebody that they think did it.
They think did it. So why would he say what he just said?
What's going to happen to this guy?
Well, I hope he's going to be found guilty, I would imagine, and I hope he gets the death penalty.